Hello gang, what a lovely day it is today in the south of England, and it's now getting into the evening. You can hear the birds around me, you hear the chickens behind me, and if you can see there's Blue, our male turkey. Oh, and Pinky's come to say hello as well. Isn't that lovely? Anyway, something on my mind. If you're a vegan and you're an activist especially, and you're tempted to call non-vegans omnivores, omnis, carnivores or carnists, could you not do that? I'll tell you why. Because it does two things. It ensures that people think that veganism is a diet. It diminishes veganism to a diet. And it's not. So that's one thing. The other thing is, it's kind of an ad hominem attack on non-vegans. You know, it's like I'm calling you an omni and an omnivore and a carnist. You know, what's the point of that? Why don't you call them actually what they are? Because you're an omnivore as well. So, you are, but you're an omnivore who's chosen to not exploit our fellow animals. So they will take that as an attack. What's the point if you're trying to persuade people as the first thing you do is are calling them names? It doesn't make any sense. You're really not. It's not going to work, is it? The people who are doing this, bizarrely enough, are the reducitarians, like Melanie Joy and her husband, and Tobias Lanehart, and so on, and Peter Singer, who are coining these phrases and using these words, apparently in an attempt to bring non-vegans into the fold. I don't know how that's going to work. Do you? Why don't we just call, a lemon and say they're as Kim Stallwood said, and I got this from Kim Stallwood, not me. He said, call them non-vegans. You're a vegan, you're a non-vegan. We know what a non-vegan is, and we know what a vegan is. We'd prefer you if you became vegan. Does that make sense? I might edit out the crappy bit in the middle, we'll see. Anyway, good evening from me, and the chickens and the turkeys and so on. Have a lovely evening, Earthlings. Ta-ra. Oh, sorry. Pinky wanted to say hello, didn't you, darling? Pinky wanted to say hello. Well, she didn't, but she's come for a cuddle anyway. She does like her cuddles. She really does like her cuddles. Bye.
Right, it's been a long time since we'd done any filming.
Yeah, I think, was it Easter time?
I think it was, yeah. And we're downstairs this time because it's so hot upstairs in the loft room. I'm sort of scared that...
And we've eaten so much chocolate we couldn't fit in the chairs.
Yeah. No, I was just so scared that the phone would overheat because today's temperature is 30 degrees. So it's quite cool in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a nice picture of the cats, if you look up there. Done by my daughter Neve. But yeah, it's a nice picture. So we're in quite a nice location now. Right, back again. I think we need to address the elephant in the room. A lot's happened since last time.
Oh God, my bump won't even fit in the camera.
Yeah, as you see, Rochelle's ate so much chocolate.
Yep.
No, you're pregnant, aren't you?
Only 4 months though.
4 months. You're due in December. You were originally due December the 25th.
Yeah, now it's 21st now.
Yeah.
So we're bringing another vegan to the world.
We are, yes. We will do a programme. We will have a word we'll have an interview with somebody about bringing up your child vegan.
Yeah.
It's quite you're quite capable of bringing up a child vegan.
Yeah, we want to dedicate a whole episode to it, don't we?
Yes.
Because I'm obviously bringing up my son at the minute, vegan, so...
Yeah, and my other daughter, Bridie, she's bringing up her, well, it will be five children, because she's pregnant as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got children all over the place being brought into the world and being brought up vegan, so that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about? What else have you...
I know you wanted to mention you went on that march, didn't you?
Yes, we went to March for the Animals, I think it was called, in Bristol.
Yeah.
Going back in May. Yeah, that was really good. It was a really nice atmosphere. It was like almost like a carnival atmosphere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the band Mobius Loop. I haven't heard much of their music, and I've never seen them live, but they were absolutely brilliant.
They played at that vigil as well, didn't they?
They did play. They played at several places. I think they played at Camp Beagle last week.
Wow.
I think it was last weekend. Yeah, so they've done quite a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
And they're going to be playing at... They are actually going to be playing at Vegan Camp Out, but not while we're there, because we're on the Sunday, aren't we?
Yeah, we that's all we could do the Sunday.
I think they're playing on the Friday night, and then they're going over to Féile Vegan, which is...
nice. So the other way round to what you're doing.
Yeah, because we're going to Féile Vegan, which is the Irish version of Vegan Camp Out, and that's on the... We're going on the Saturday. They're doing Vegan Camp Out on the Friday. And then when we come away on I think they're coming over to Vegan Camp Out on the Saturday, we hopefully might see them. No, did I say Vegan Camp Out? They're coming over to Féile Vegan on the Saturday.
Nice.
So hopefully we might see them, but they might be going on just after we go. So I'm not sure, because I'm not sure what time, because we're catching the ferry straight over and travelling overnight.
Yeah.
Staying somewhere nearby Vegan Camp Out, and then we're meeting you there on the Sunday, aren't we?
Yeah, which would be really nice.
Very confusing. Yeah, but it should be fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, talking of Ireland, we went over there going back about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and we actually, before I talk about who we did the interview with, we actually met up with Dennis Nealis and Sentient Rights Ireland and did a bit of
outreach with them.
Outreach,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
in
looks
Galway,
really good what you've
which
done.
was really quite interesting. Yeah, they're a great group. They're a little group, but they do a lot of work. So
Yeah, lots of good work.
yeah. So and they do it every single Friday, and then of course leading on to Sentient Rights Ireland in Dublin. Roger Yates,
Yeah.
who I interviewed, he does it every Saturday.
Yeah,
So
quite an interesting interview, this one.
yeah. Interesting, bit controversial in places, and we talked for so long. We talked for about nearly 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
So, and I didn't cut too much of the interview out. So there's only a little bit in places, and I'm so sorry. There's a few minutes in where it does glitch a little bit. And I've had to put another picture in because I didn't want to miss out any of the wording. So you'll see it cuts to the picture of a computer screen. But it's got actually a nice little statement from the Vegan Society
Nice.
on the computer screen.
It's quite interesting what he's got to say in his view and his take on, veganism as a whole, as a lifestyle.
Yes, a lifestyle. He actually calls it a philosophy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we won't say any more. Here's the interview.
Yeah, no spoilers.
Hey, Earthlings, welcome along to yet another vegan time tunnel. Hey, Mr. Lee. Hello. Earthlings of the world, hello, everyone.
Right, so we're here with Roger Yates from, I don't know what you call yourself. You are. I know you do the Sentient Rights Ireland outreach.
Yeah, well, yeah, VIP, Sentient Rights Ireland, yeah, and also a Yorkshireman.
A Yorkshireman.
You know, I always say that I came from the Republic of Yorkshire to the Republic of Ireland, you know, because a lot of Yorkshire people don't admit that Yorkshire's in England, you know.
Oh, right.
They see it as a separate country.
Yeah, they do.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so I suppose you could say Sentient Rights Ireland is the main thing I'm doing. Although I'm kind of like a consultant for that, in the sense that in terms of the public face, obviously needs to be Irish.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we talked about that before, that, it wouldn't look good if it was an Englishman.
No, sometimes you get that even on the street. Oh, an English person telling us what to do.
Do you?
Sometimes you do.
Yeah.
It's fairly rare, but you do still get it. But it's good because I'm always surrounded by Irish people. So
yeah, that's good. So about your background, tell us as little or as much as you like, by the way. So how did you get in? How did you become vegan? That's the first question we always ask.
Yeah, well, that is I took a weird route into it, actually. I always say it started off when I was a kid. I had this thing about fairness, about what was and wasn't fair. And I have a childhood memory of being at school. This is on the Isle of Wight, and jumping from desk to desk to let wasps out, and everyone else was trying to kill them.
Right.
Yeah. And then when I got my first job as a projectionist, I was a junior projectionist, I was in the staff room with an usher, and there was a crane fly, you know, flying daddy long legs, going up the wall as they do, you know, up and down and all that. And she took her shoe off and she went bang, killed. And I said, why did you do that? And she said, oh, I think they're ugly. And I said, well, I think you're pretty ugly, but I wouldn't have done that to you, you know. And so I think these were the first kind of sparks of some kind of consciousness. And then my sister, who was 8 years senior than me, and went vegan about the same time. Well, she always says she went vegan a year before me, but it was a couple of years after, actually. But we won't hold that. But she was into conservation quite a lot, and so I remember the elephant appeal and the tiger appeal. These kind of envelopes on the mantelpiece.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the same time, there was a financial scandal involving the RSPCA, where the CEO of the RSPCA had bought himself some new carpeting or something for an absolutely astonishing amount of money for the time. And so I kind of put those two things together, and I said, well, what, you know, how do you know that the money that you're collecting is getting to our fellow animals that you want to save? And of course she didn't, because it was going to a corporation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then, this is 1977 now, there was an advert in a music paper about the Hunt Saboteurs. And they weren't asking for money, they were asking for action.
Right.
And I thought, that's me. And so I joined them and tried to get something going. I was in Scunthorpe at the time. And there was nobody else around. So it was like a false start. And so by the time we get to 1979, everything had kind of come together. I'd moved to London, again as a projectionist, and got involved with an active SAB group, who were also involved with Sea Shepherd as well. And so kind of direct action just kind of suited me right from the beginning, you know. And then, of course, when it came to the dietary aspects, things started not to make that much sense. And I do remember, I don't know if you remember this, you know, the John Craven's News Round?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember one of those, and they were talking to some fisher folk from Orkneys, and this guy goes, well, we have to kill the seals because they're eating our fish. And that really kind of struck me, that phrase, our fish, what do you mean, your fish, right? And so that was the first thing I started boycotting. So it's a really unusual route to all this. And so I was eating the flesh of some animals, but not the flesh of fishes. And then within a few weeks, I was thinking, this is not making any sense. Yeah. And so then, it led straight to veganism. So I skipped the kind of vegetarian phase. Didn't really go vegetarian.
Which a lot of people go down that route.
Yeah, but worse than that, though, is some people get stuck in it. And, you must have seen this. It happens all the time. People on social media going, oh, I really regret the years that I was a vegetarian and I didn't know and all this kind of stuff. Well, luckily, I just jumped straight over that. So I regard myself as quite lucky there. So that was it. And then, I mean, we're into the early 80s now. And so active Hunt Saab. And then I became on the committee of the BWV, which is now Cruelty Free International.
Right.
So, I saw your interview with John Curtin, and he's right. When John and I came into the movement, and all the people around that time, the long-term vegans, Ronnie Lee and Robin Lane, all the kind of people you can think of, it was vivisection. That was the main thing, And interestingly, it was kind of scientific anti-vivisection that was the big thing. There was a writer at the time called Hans Reusch, and he was actually opposed to animal rights. And so he basically was saying that human beings are selfish, and that the only way you can stop them supporting vivisection is if you tell them that their health will be under threat if they do.
Right.
They won't listen to a moral argument. And I didn't quite like that. Because I was getting involved with the moral stuff fairly early on. I mean, everybody that I knew had kind of had got Peter Singer's Animal Liberation, which we all learned later is not an animal rights book. And who said it's not an animal rights book? Well, Peter Singer does. So there's a real kind of weird story about it.
So if it's not an animal rights book, then what is it?
It's a utilitarian animal welfare book.
Right, okay.
For example, in the book, he says that he can't really see a moral problem with free-range egg production, right? And he wouldn't be totally opposed to all vivisection, but most of it, right? Now, he was being touted and kind of presented as the father of animal rights at the time, which obviously is a controversial thing. There's also another guy called Andrew Lindsay. And then when we get into the 80s, 83, then you get the Case for Animal Rights by Tom Reagan. So that is rights-based animal rights. And sometimes you have to say that phrase. Now, so it's rights-based animal rights. It's animal rights based on taking rights seriously. And if that sounds like a strange thing to say, it's because there are a lot of people who will call themselves animal rights, but they don't adhere to the philosophy. I was saying to you earlier that the movement is a bit of a philosophical mess. First of all, you've got people promoting Peter Singer as animal rights, although he himself says repeatedly that he's not. I actually once had a petition which was going to be sent to PETA, as in People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, because they've always described Animal Liberation as an animal rights book. Yeah. Even though the author said it's not. So that's what I'm saying. This is indication of how messy things could be. And then when you suddenly get real animal rights, as it were, you've got a problem, because Reagan, well, first of all, it's 8 years later than Singer, but also it's more difficult to read. It's also more uncompromising. And so, he's what's called deontology, which is almost like rule-based. So you rule out the exploitation of our fellow animals on moral grounds, right? Whereas Singer is much more flexible. So he talks about being a flexible vegan. He wrote an essay which was controversial, saying that every now and again, there's nothing wrong with having the luxury of a non-vegan meal, right? And this kind of stuff. And so, I think the important thing to say about Singer is that he's always been honest. He's never ever claimed to be an animal rights person.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what he did do actually, though, because he must have explained all this to Ingrid Newkirk, who insisted on going against her own philosopher and mislabeling him. Right, he must have said that to him, to her, and I think what happened in the end is that he came to the conclusion that the animal rights movement was too unsophisticated to understand the difference between animal rights and animal welfare. So I think he kind of left it. And it's only subsequently in things like academic lectures where somebody will bring up animal rights and he go, well, I want to make a pedantic point. I'm not an animal rights advocate, right? You know, and so that's a kind of weird, kind of interesting part of it. And in terms of my development, is that as soon as I started to get involved with Reagan's work, it all fell into place for me. So rights-based animal rights became what I went for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that immediately puts you at odds with the kind of welfare kind of thing. And then the real problem, really, because it would be fine in the movement if, say, for example, there were some people who were known as animal welfare, and they did animal welfare, and there's other people who were known as animal rights, and they did animal rights. The problem is the welfarists want the name animal rights, and that's the thing that's caused the problem, right? And so Gary Francione tried to resolve that issue by coming up with a concept called new welfare, which is kind of, you can sum it up by saying that their position is that welfare plus welfare plus welfare equals rights. So we can get to animal rights by doing a series of animal welfare, events or campaigns and that kind of stuff. And eventually we'll end up with animal rights, even though you're actually doing animal welfare. And of course, the people who wanted the name animal rights didn't like the name new welfare.
No.
And they didn't like the name welfare either. So you've got this weird paradox. People have said this to me for years. They call themselves animal rights because they don't want to be called animal welfarists, even though their position is more welfarist than rights. And then other people think that there's nothing wrong with having a blend between the two. I think there's a lot of that kind of common position in the movement now. Well, why can't we do both? And in fact, I've been told that, well, we've got to do animal welfare because the animal welfarists are so rubbish at it. And of course, I suppose you can see a modern day incantation of that with the big argument about the RSPCA and the labelling and stuff. And so basically, you've got all the campaign groups and Joey complaining about the RSPCA, but the RSPCA are just being the RSPCA. They've never claimed to be a vegan group. No. And they've never claimed to be abolitionist. They've never said that. Because I got Earthling Ed's first book, and he says in that the RSPCA is a paradoxical organisation. It's not. They're a traditional animal welfare organisation, and that's all they've ever claimed to be. Right? And so you can't expect them. I remember Earthling Ed put out a video. It's really interesting, this. And I think it was a cartoon. And it was about the fact that sometimes, I'll try not to make this too graphic, but sometimes pregnant cows end up at the slaughterhouse. Right? And then, so when they're hanging up to be disemboweled and everything, they find a calf.
Yeah.
And then the problem is, what do you do with the calf? Because the calf really, in terms of animal agriculture, if you like, doesn't exist. Not ear tagged, doesn't have a passport. It's kind of essentially, from the industry point of view, waste product. And so the RSPCA, they put out guidelines about what to do to try to say to the slaughterhouse people, if you find that situation, this is what to do, and essentially it's kill them quickly. right? So they're being extracted from their dead mother, freshly dead mother, if you like, and then they say just kill them, you know, because you can't put them into the so-called food chain, and then of course then it's, well, how do we do that? And then it's kind of, well, you can either use your stun gun, you know, captive bolt pistol, or blunt force trauma, which kind of means hitting them with a brick or swinging them against a wall or something like that, right? Now, the RSPCA were saying to the slaughterhouse people, this is what you do. Earthing Ed found that out and said, what's going on? Why are the RSPCA recommending this? Now, the RSPCA are just doing their job to try and make the system of slaughtering our fellow animals as, you know, as little cruelty as possible.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating because a lot of people in the comments going, right, well, I've cancelled my subscription to the RSPCA. So I contacted a few of these people, kind of as an interested sociologist, and I said, well, why were you a member of the RSPCA in the first place if you don't believe in animal welfare? And they said, well, it's because it's got cruelty in the name. So it must be a vegan group. I said, no, they've never said they were a vegan group.
No.
You know, and there's no cultural connection between the word cruelty and veganism. This is another problem at the moment in the movement, that you've got messages like, that is cruel, go vegan. There's no cultural connection between those two positions, right? And so a lot of work would need to be done to move people from being opposed to cruelty, and as you know, everybody is, right? You ask anybody, they're against animal cruelty. You know, if you know, you can walk down the high street with a clipboard, and everybody will tell you they're against animal cruelty.
Yeah, they do.
They're against animal abuse. These are RSPCA words, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they don't eat them, and that's because of cultural speciesism, which basically has got animal welfareism built into it. So the promise of animal welfareism, this is like the ideology of animal welfare, is of non-cruel use. So it says we can use our fellow animals, but we can do it in a non-cruel way. And not only is that possible and feasible, it's common, which is why, and I bet you're seeing this as well, is that when you expose a particular farm or something, then the press will often describe what's going on, a one bad apple and this kind of stuff, because they think that the norm is non-cruel. They actually think that what goes on in slaughterhouses is non-cruel, right? And to some definitions, it is. And you still now, on vegan pages, you get farmers going, you vegans don't know what you're talking about. I work in the slaughterhouses. I never see any cruelty. And what they mean is that the animals are brought into the slaughterhouse without being hit or without being, you know, electrocuted or anything like that. And then they're successfully stunned, and then they're hung up and killed. Now that is non-cruel use in the eyes of a traditional welfare position, right? So, but obviously vegans go, well, no, we're opposed to that. So it's the use that we're opposed to. That's the difference between welfare and rights. You know, animal rights is opposed to using our fellow animals. Animal welfare is about making them as comfortable as possible while we're using them. You know, or as Tom Reagan famously says, you know, we're not looking for bigger cages, we're looking for empty cages.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the big thing. Now, that's obviously a very long-winded version of what got me into it, but that's my early kind of intro into veganism and campaigning and direct action.
So you're totally for animal rights, not for animal welfare, are you? At all? You are animal rights.
Yeah, I'm an animal liberationist, and yeah, I would stand for animal rights. Yeah.
So how did you get into the ALF?
Well, that was Ronnie Lee's fault, who's the co-founder of the group, and so that was co-founded in 1976. And
you and Ronnie have been good friends for a long time then.
Yes, well, I'm not sure about friends, but yeah, we've known each other a long time, and we've done podcasts and all the rest of it. And of course, we were in the same prison cell as well for many months. We used to have to bribe ourselves to get back into the same cells and stuff, and we used to have to bribe people with tobacco. So he was getting so busy because the activities of the ALF was getting so frequent and sometimes quite militant. He was so busy.
Can you just explain for anybody that doesn't know the sort of things that you did back then, what sort of form that would take?
Yeah, I suppose the easiest way is to do that through the policy of the ALF. So the ALF there's a few versions of the policy, but it boils down to something like, 1, rescue our fellow animals from places of use. 2, cause economic sabotage, which means damage them financially.
Sure.
So smashing shop windows, gluing locks. And this is where more controversial things like arson would come into it, burning down so-called meat lorries and this kind of stuff. And then the third policy was that no action should cause harm to any animal, human or non-human. Right.
Any animal, human or non-human.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. And so that was the policy of the ALF, which is why when you got some groups who actually wanted to do harm to humans, they had the good sense to call themselves something else. So you ended up with the Animal Rights Militia, the Hunt Retribution Squad, the Justice Department, right? So these are the ones who said that their policy is to actually do harm to those they regarded as animal abusers, right? Whereas the ALF had a non-violence policy, right? And so it was always controversial because of that. Like why can't we go to war with them, kind of thing. And I think people kind of adhered to it to various degrees, really. But generally speaking, people adhered to that, and so. The main thing that the ALF were doing in the early, that's actually quite a little bit wrong, because some of the very early actions of the ALF were to do with trying to damage laboratories and stuff. But there was a lot of animal rescue, actually physical rescue, and then you ended up with some really kind of famous, iconic pictures of people coming out of laboratories with beagles. And rabbits and etc. And of course they were very popular. I mean, the movement loved it, and so did the press by and large. So in those days we were often kind of called things like animal freedom fighters. Right.
I remember that phrase.
Yeah. And then on a technical issue, we started to run out of homes. Forever homes for the liberated ones. I mean, because technically we're talking about stolen property here. Our fellow animals are, in the eyes of the law, items of property.
Sure. And
so if you hand over a beagle to someone, they're handling stolen property.
Goods, yeah.
So that means that it was difficult for people to first of all contemplate that. And then there was some problems because, say, for example, this is on a social psychological level, this is really difficult. You've got, say, homes for 56 chickens, and you go into a unit, and there's 5,000-6,000 of them. It's very difficult to only remove 56 individuals.
I'd say.
Yeah. And so you ended up with more, which means that you turn up at the home with more than you should, which means that they then have a problem dealing with the individuals, because what the activists wanted to do, of course, is drop them off and go.
Yeah.
Safest thing, as it were, And then you had instances where, for example, in Scotland, there was a raid on a vivisection breeder this is beagles again. I think 30 individuals were brought out, and each and every one was heavily pregnant. So that means you had lots and lots of individuals then to
Yeah.
So if you're turning up and going, well, here's your 3 beagles, and you go, by the way, they're all pregnant.
Yeah, they're potentially more than that.
Yeah. So you can see a major problem. So that made it that people weren't less willing to say yes again. You know, how many are going to come this time? You know, and it was also the time when most sanctuaries weren't run by vegans either.
Right.
You know, which a lot of vegans have difficulty understanding, that most animal sanctuaries weren't run by vegans in those days. So we had a technical problem that our homes were drying up. I started something called the Rescued Animal Sanctuary Fund, which was to try to sneakily ask people whether they'll take some rescued animals, and we didn't say liberated, we said rescued. So it was trying to get around it. And of course, because the homes were fewer, it meant that there was fewer of the first policy, animal rescue. And so the activists turned to the second policy, economic sabotage. And so that meant the amount of damage started going up. And I mean, like, we're talking about a big deal. I mean, like, at one time there was something like 6 ALF actions per night.
Right.
And that is just in Britain, right? So you can.
How many were in the organisation at the time then, when that sort of thing would be
You
going
mean
on?
members?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, there wasn't any members. You basically became a member, using that phrase loosely, just by doing the action.
Just by turning up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you got yourself together with a few mates and then did a liberation, you were then able to be called ALF. And the press office would regard you as an ALF activist.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, because of the amount of work, Ronnie says, I need somebody else to work in the north. Will you be the northern press office? And I think for a good 18 months or so, I said no. I was really busy with other stuff. I was really busy with lots of action groups and stuff, single issues, sabbing, 2 or 3 times a week. I used to sometimes sab on my own on a motorbike. And so I was really busy. And then eventually I started to kind of realize that the ALF was really useful in terms of vegan education, because the press wanted to talk to them. And so this was then an opportunity to explain why the activists have done what they've done. And suddenly I realized the potential of being a press officer for it. Yeah. So I changed my mind and I said yes. And then within 8 months I was nicked. So that was the end of that. But so I wasn't a press officer for very long, but I was there and thereabouts, because I used to do a lot of the press work for the Hunt Saboteurs during the Waterloo Cup. Do you remember the Waterloo Cup, the hare coursing?
I don't.
Yeah, it was the biggest hare coursing event in the world.
Right.
And it was near Liverpool, where I was at the time, And then we also organised the grouse shooting over in Yorkshire on the Dales. And so we were incredibly busy.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, we used to... We used to work from this place called Dungeon Lane. I just found out that Paul McCartney's got a new album called Dungeon Lane. Yeah. And I was thinking, I used to live there. It was really weird. So there was 3 cottages on Dungeon Lane. And it was called Dungeon Lane because that's where they brought the slaves in. Right? Yeah, so they would pull up and all the slaves would go there first before wherever else, And there was 3 cottages, and we had them all, right? But we only paid for 1, because the landlord didn't even know there was 3 cottages. He only thought there was 1. It was like an agency type thing.
Yeah.
Weird, right? And we were paying £5 a month.
Oh wow.
For 3 cottages.
Yeah.
But they were kind of cold water cottages. There was no toilets or anything. We had like this little shed out the back and everything. And felt sorry for the bin men, because they used to come and they'd find a huge tub for them to throw in the back of the... But there was a hell of a lot of work going out there. You know, we had Dave and Fiona Callender at the time doing the Hunt Saboteurs. And I was there. There's another guy, John Page, who ended up working for BOAV and Animal Aid. It was a real hub of activity.
Yes.
That's when we first started doing street stalls as well. Loads and loads of stuff going on.
What years are you talking? Is this the 80s?
This is 1981 to around about 1984, I suppose. You know, and yeah, I mean, it was a big kind of deal. And in terms of me, I was kind of evolving all the time. You know, I was heavily involved with single issues until I started to think, well, is this the best use of the time? You know, and I know there is still a lot of vegans who are really committed to single issues. You know, again, back to John, say, for example.
Yeah, the Beagles.
And, you know, whereas when vegan education started to really take off, and that wasn't really until the mid-90s. You know, I mean, people think that we've been doing vegan education for decades and decades. Well, we haven't. It's kind of a 21st century phenomena.
Yeah.
You know? And, I mean, even Vegan Outreach, the group that was started in the States, that wasn't really going really until the late 1990s. So you could say that the kind of thing that we now understand as vegan education or vegan outreach is only been this century only, right? And so if people say, well, we've tried it and it hasn't worked, it's far too early to say that.
Yeah.
You know, and there's also not been very much of it. You know, I mean, if you think about Britain, right, you know, there's been some in London, other centres. There was a lot of work going on in Nottingham area, a lot of work in Manchester, a lot in Wolverhampton at one point. But in terms of the entire country, there's been very little of it. And some areas have never been touched by it, really.
No, I know.
So Ronnie's dream, if you like, is to have vegan education everywhere and all the time. And the truth is we've never had that. So it's far too early to you know, to say it's not you know, to kind of cast it aside and go back to pressure campaigns or anything like that. So, you know, my thing now is vegan education only. That's where I am at, and I work on this basis of division of labour. So, first of all, we know that the majority of vegans are not active. So that's something that is an issue in the movement.
Yeah, because do you think that if you're vegan then, that you have to be active with the outreach and animal rights?
It's better if you are, but no, you don't have to.
Because we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? That it doesn't always suit everybody.
No, that's true.
For many reasons.
Yeah, you've got to have the right kind of personality for it. You know, you need to have a certain outlook, and some people are shy, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, we've had a case where there's a Facebook group in Dublin who's criticised our outreach as being too militant, and it's just we've just been there with cheese samples.
I was going to say, what do you do?
Yeah, it's just banners and leaflets.
And you offer food samples as well.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of cheese sampling and stuff like that, and that was described as too militant. And
so how could you make it less?
Well, I think it's almost like there are some people who kind of think it's a personal matter, but they will see themselves as, first of all, vegan, and they might see themselves as a vegan campaigner, because, for example, if somebody says to them, "Why are you vegan?" they'll tell them why, right? And so, in that sense, they're a campaigner, you know. So there is that kind of issue. Exactly what they'll say is another matter, because a lot of vegans will tell people that veganism is a diet, which isn't true.
No, it's not.
No, but it is a common kind of problem, really, in the movement. But then of the activists, the vegan activists who will do actions or activities, only some of those will do vegan education. So my position is, rather than saying to people, other vegans, you should be doing X, because I don't have the right to do that, I accept that they're going to do what they want and let them get on with it. But what I do say to the vegans who will do vegan outreach, that the best thing to do then, since you will do it, is to only do it. Right? So it's a division of labour. Don't get diverted into less than vegan stuff. And I would include, which is the more controversial thing, single issues, you know, because if you think of it this way, it's almost like the Francione idea, which came through in the mid-90s. You know, there's his book, it's called Rain Without Thunder, 1996.
Is that one to read, by the way?
It is a good book, and that's where he introduces us to new welfarism. Right? But basically, he's saying, this will never happen, but he's saying, if all the vegans who will be activists, if all you did was vegan education, you don't do sabbing, you don't do fur things, you know, you won't do the factory farming stuff that you mentioned before. You concentrate on vegan education. That means that there's going to be hundreds of thousands of hours of vegan education, which is not happening right now. And so that ties in with Ronnie's thing. He wants more vegan education all the time and everywhere. The only people who will do it is vegans, right? And so the argument then is that if all the vegans did that consistently, then veganism would be a lot further along the road than it is now. Because if only a minority of a minority will do it, and then every now and again they're doing other stuff as well, rather than concentrating, stay in their lane type of thing. So that's a problem. So it's almost like a maths issue. If you've got people who will do vegan education, but then they go and do something else, well, that's time that they're not doing vegan education. So I mean, it's fairly logical, really. And so that's my position. I just suggest to people who will do vegan education to do vegan education.
Yeah.
So
You think it's much more effective?
Yeah, I see it as a division of labour. See, so if you're willing to do it, then that's what you do, because nobody else will do it. The vegetarians won't do it. The reducitarians won't do it. You know, it's only vegans who will do vegan education, and it's only some of the vegans who will do vegan education. So the vegans who will do vegan education should do vegan education.
Sure.
It's kind of very logical to me.
Going back to the people that seem to think that basically being a part-time vegan then works. Why would that work? Why?
I don't understand the phrase part-time vegan.
Well, like say Peter Singer said, having a meal every so often.
But they're not vegan. See, I mean, don't forget, veganism is a philosophy, it's not a diet. And so, first of all, we should...
Does he not call himself vegan then?
No, he didn't actually, and he would call himself a flexible vegan. So there's a lot of flexible vegans about now. You've got lots of it. You've got lots of it on Instagram right now. You've got lots of it on TikTok right now. I mean, if you look at my Facebook page, I sometimes reproduce their videos, and they saw. You know, kind of vegan until, you know, I mean, Singer was in favour of vegan until 6. You're vegan until 6 p.m. in the day. You can't be, because it's a philosophy. That's like saying be Marxist until 6. Yeah. It's a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah.
It's just that a lot of people regard veganism as a diet. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the vegan movement regard veganism as a diet, and so it gets...
Do you think there is a majority, or do you think it's just a small minority of people
who think it's a diet?
Yeah.
No, I think there's a lot of them.
Really?
Yeah. And it's been led by...
What makes you think that?
Well, the Melanie Joy cartel, they promote that. Tobias Leonhardt, Sebastian Joy, Melanie Joy, they always talk about gradients of vegan. Oh, if you can only be an 80% vegan, be an 80% vegan. Well, veganism is a philosophy. So how do you be an 80% vegan? I suppose technically it could be true, but I mean, could you be an 80% socialist? Could be an 80% conservative or Marxist?
Yeah, not really. Yeah.
It's weird when you say those things. Really, what's going on, of course, I mean, it's obvious. What's going on is that they're confusing plant-based with veganism. Now, there's a lot of people who think that division is divisive. I actually think it's very useful. I mean, Tobias Leonhardt at one point called himself veganish. Right, veganish.
So I've heard that word before. I don't like that word.
No, but he's got a picture of himself in a T-shirt with veganish on it.
Yeah.
Now, I welcomed him doing that because at least he wasn't saying he was a vegan.
Well, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's good to me. I mean, like, if he was more honest, he'd just call himself a vegetarian or even a pescatarian, because he seems to have some big dislike about fishes, because he's always promoting the eating of fishes.
Yeah, why do people, because I know this lady.
It's to make it easier.
Yeah, well, I know this lady, and she said she's been out and out right. She's done the marches and everything. For years, she was into animal rights and various other things. And she doesn't actually call herself vegan. She says she's vegetarian. I think she's more pescatarian than anything. But she'll eat fish. But I know a few people that do that. They don't actually call themselves vegans, but they care about
that's
animals.
Okay then.
But why do they not see fish as animals?
Well,
why don't I just can't understand that? Why wouldn't you see fish?
Well,
as animals?
we do have this weird division between red meat, white meat, and fishes, and a lot of the vegetarians were also eating chicken flesh and regularly eating fish flesh, right? But call themselves vegetarians. So that was always a problem. So that's why you ended up with lacto, ovo, vegetarian, this kind of stuff. Yeah, to do all that. There was a proposal about, must be 10 years ago now, for lacto-veganism. Right, so vegans who would consume cow milk, right? And so there's always this push. Now, what someone like Leonhardt would say, and there is logic to this, is that if you make the entry to a club easier, you'll get more members.
This is what I'm thinking. Is that
that's it? Yeah. So he says, for example, he says somebody who eats fishes and cookies with an egg in it, they're vegan as far as I'm concerned. He says that, right? Now, what he's basically saying is that he wants to make a lot of vegetarians, but he wants to call them vegan. Now, exactly why, I don't know. Because he's a vegetarian at best, right? He also probably adheres to Melanie Joy's carnism idea, and that's a vegetarian idea.
Can you explain what carnism is then?
Well, it's a belief system, but it's a subset of speciesism. She calls it a sub-ideology of speciesism.
Right.
And she says it's analogous to if you were opposed to anti-Semitism as part of being anti-racist. So anti-racism was the big thing, anti-Semitism, right? And so she's basically saying that carnism is a subset of speciesism. So speciesism is the big issue. I've always said that our number one target in this movement is cultural speciesism. And the reason I say cultural is because each generation is brought up as speciesists, And again, animal welfarism is deeply embedded within that socialization process. Like everybody tells their children, don't be cruel. But that doesn't mean don't eat them. It means don't be cruel to them. Okay, so this is the problem. When vegans insist on using RSPCA cruelty language, they're causing terrible confusion because people don't quite get what veganism is, And if you use RSPCA language, well, they're going to confuse you with the RSPCA. So again, it seems to me that even on a tactical, I would say tactically, we ought to have almost like a moratorium in this movement on the word cruelty and never use it. Animal abuse is a little bit more wobbly, but I'd get rid of that as well. And I would use animal rights words like our fellow animals are rights holders, that what we do to them is a rights violation, which are much stronger things in the first place.
I can see how now language is so important.
Oh, it's absolutely crucial. We talked about this with the David Nybert podcast, the Animal Rights Show. And he was talking about, because Wendy was asking, why don't some animal advocates get the importance of language? It's a real mystery to me, because, for example, sociologists regard social movements as claims makers in civil society. We make claims. We identify a problem or an issue, and we call it a problem, and we make claims about it. Classic example is feminism. They identify a problem which they call patriarchy. They make claims about it, which is that patriarchy is pretty bad. We need to get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
We make the thing, the world is speciesist. We need to do something about it, right? And so we're claims makers. So in other words, what we say, what we're doing right now in this interview, is we're transmitting our values to each other. And that's what you do when you talk to everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not rocket science, this.
No.
But if you're sloppy with your words, then people are not necessarily going to get your position. If your position is articulated by words, then you ought to be careful about the words to make sure that people get your position right.
Well, this is what I think, what I'm trying to say is the people that, my phrase then, being a part-time vegan then, as some people think that you can be, doesn't it? I know it doesn't exist. I know it doesn't. You can't be a part-time vegan. Exactly. But doing that as a way to get into veganism, is to draw people in. I think the whole meaning of veganism can be lost altogether. Before you know it, people are going to go around thinking that being vegan, it's going to be watered down.
Well, yeah, but if you deliberately build in exceptions and compromises, which is what the reducitarians do, and that's the kind of Tobias Leonhardt position.
Reducitarians, you say?
That's a better word. Reduce your meat consumption and this kind of stuff, right? And all these things are a positive. Well, whatever we want to make of that claim, what it isn't is veganism. And so, I get called by them a purist, right?
Yes, I saw you were using that this word came up. Yeah, purist.
It means morally consistent, that's all.
Yeah, aren't you proud to be a purist then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to be morally consistent.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with morally consistent. I mean, the weird thing is, of course, is that in society in general, the idea of kind of purity and somebody who is really strictly kind of adheres to their philosophical position, they are quite often called a range of names, aren't they? Militant, radical, extremist, this kind of stuff. Whereas on the face of it, if somebody has a position and sticks to it, well, that's a good thing, surely.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, but you get called names if you do. And the reason is that you'll say, well, you've put the bar too high, right? And then they'll reverse it and say, who the hell do you think you are? You on your high horse kind of thing. You won't come down to that. I've always been told, meet people where they are. I used to say, yeah, but they're in McDonald's. We've got to get them out of there. It's not a question of meeting people where they are. Our job. I mean, we're in the cultural sabotage business. All the pioneers of the vegan society said that we need to spread vegan values, and when we do, we'll get a revolution. People like Kathleen Janaway said, if we can spread vegan values, we'd end poverty, we'd end warfare. You know, that's why they regarded, although it's kind of, I suppose my phrase, the ultimate peace movement. But veganism is the ultimate peace movement.
Yes, I think it is.
It is, yeah. That's right, yeah. And it was born in the last years of the Second World War. They went through the first years when they were devising the philosophy, a lot of it through the work of Leslie Cross. They were doing all that whilst rationing was still going. You know, so if you see a modern day vegan going, "Oh, it's so hard," no, it ain't compared with that, right?
I often think that, that they were going to, like you say, it was a time of rationing. So how can people complain today when there's so much on offer?
Yeah, and that, of course, is doing that translation into the dietary thing. If people say to me, "Oh, is veganism easier than it is?" I say it's the same. It's a philosophy. So veganism was as easy to adhere to in 1940 as it is now, or as hard to adhere to as now. It's a question of aligning your actions with your philosophy that's the issue.
Yes, surely if you believe, you will find a way. Surely.
Well, yes, actually, we've got a set of banners, and it says, "Before you ask how, ask why." Right. And we've got a picture of fishes. There's a pig individual. There's a cow, and who's the fourth one? Fishes, pig, cow. Oh, a chicken. And it's true. If you've got a philosophical, moral reason for something, then you'll find a way, as you just said.
Yeah.
And that's dead simple. And so, if people come to understand what veganism means and see it in its glory, if you like, then they'll find a way in a dietary sense, right? And they'll struggle through. But even then, I mean, we've got the internet now. I mean, it's not as though, somebody said the other day, "Oh, can you recommend some recipes?" And I was thinking, well, just get on a search engine.
I was going to say, there's so much out there now.
No, and I was shocked about, it must be a good year ago now. I went to a library. I hadn't been to a library for years. Went to a library. There was about 30 vegan cookbooks in there.
Was there?
Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't even a particularly big library either. So I don't know whether that was an unusual library, but certainly on that one there was loads. And so I might have maybe 30 might be wrong, but there's a lot.
Yeah.
We've got, there's another one. There's shelves and that, and so you're thinking, wow. Yeah. So so if you've got a philosophical, moral reason not to harm others, then you'll find a way of not doing it. And of course it's a learning process, and then there's all the indirect type stuff, all the stuff that the non-vegans throw at you, crop deaths and all the rest of it.
Oh yeah, how many times I've heard that.
Yeah. Well, my take on that is that, but it's the farmers who are doing that as well. Right? Vegans don't do it.
No.
Right. Now they say, "Oh yeah, but you're creating the market," and that bit is true, but it's a structural issue. See, if you've got an issue which is structural, it means it's much harder to do anything about it because you're in this structure. In other words, if you go into a supermarket, you see an array of carrots. You don't know that in any individual packet there's crop deaths in there, as it were.
No.
Whereas if you go to the morgue section of the supermarket, then you do know that there's death and rights violation because you can see it right there.
Exactly.
There's a body part, right? And so we want the farmers not to kill anyone for any reason. And I've always said that because it's a structural issue, the vegan movement has to become bigger, which is another good reason for people to do vegan education. And that will give us more socio-political power. Once we've got that, we can have a bigger say when we're talking to farmers and to politicians and stuff. Because politicians, they don't lead, they follow. And they usually follow the votes and they follow the money. when we've got the votes, then they'll follow us. But you know, at the moment we're building that cultural base from the bottom up. It's a grassroots thing. You know, I don't believe at the moment of going to Parliament for anything.
No.
You're not going to get anything. In fact, I put there's this researcher from Australia called Nick Pendergrass, and I just put an audio of his out. He did research on the big groups and the small groups, and he actually mentioned the Vegan Information Project, and he said the small groups can have a much stronger vegan message because there's not much money in the vegan message, whereas the large groups, they've got, you know, more need for money because they've got staff and stuff.
Sure.
Right, and so therefore they tend to edge the vegan message. You know, I've got a series of videos talking about how, you know, the large groups would often see veganism as a scare word, right? And even when the large groups started to use vegan instead of veg or veggie or that kind of hybrid thing, VEG*N, which I really dislike, because that's conflating the two together, you know, veganism and vegetarianism. But once they started to accept that veganism is the moral baseline, if you like, they all consistently described it as a diet.
Right.
So all the groups, Animal Aid, Viva, PETA, they all started to switch from vegetarian to vegan, but veganism was presented as a diet, you know. So they're quite timid compared with the grassroots. The grassroots are much more willing to tell the truth. Yeah. Because they don't have their P45 involved. Right? It's as simple as that. Right? And I suppose the grassroots are even, they're more likely to tell the truth than, say, the influencers, because they've got a lot of money wrapped up in what they do now as well.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, right back in the 1980s, the early 80s, I started to develop a critique of careerism in the movement. And I always said that, you know, there's two types of people. They see an issue and some people go, this is my campaign for life or whatever, you know, that's it, right? And other people go, oh, this is a career here, right? And I've always been wary of the careerists in the movement, the ones who are doing it for the money. Now, I'm not actually opposed to advocates being paid. In fact, I thought the Patreon system would be perfect. You know, we were talking before about some people who can't or won't be activists. Yeah. I thought that they would fund the people who would be activists and help them with buying photocopiers and, you know, printers and all the rest of it to make their badges or whatever. And, you know, because, I mean, with the VIP, we, apart from things like Go Vegan World, we produced our own literature because we didn't want the donations flying back to England. Right? No. So we wanted to keep it in Ireland. But, you know, so I thought that people would go, right, so where's my local group? Have they got a Patreon system? We'll give to that. Instead of giving it to some corporation in England, give it to your local group. Yeah. You know, and the advantage of that is you can tell what happens to your money because they're all over social media, as we know. So you can basically keep track on them and therefore your own money on a daily basis. If you give money to an international group or a national group, you know, here's 50 quid. What happens to that?
Yeah, you've no idea.
You have no idea, no.
No.
So the grassroots has got loads of advantages. You can tell the truth. You know, the downside of it is the fact that you might have people who are part-time at it because they've got, as it were, a proper job. You know, I mean, like in the 1980s, we were on the dole. You know, I mean, Ronnie Leo used to say, you know, people go, well, who funds all this? And he goes, you do. I'm on the dole. So the government is funding it, you know. Because I always had this weird thing, you know, like if you've got an activist who becomes rich and they go into a high tax bracket, they're paying a lot of tax.
Yeah.
And then what happens to that money when you're giving it to the government? It goes to vivisection, it goes to farming, right? I almost think that vegans have got a moral duty not to be that rich. You know, I mean, if I was an influencer and starting to get loads and loads in, I would kind of put a ceiling on it and say, no, I've got enough now. Don't send me any more. You know, of course, it could be that they're kind of, you know, backhanding it here, there, and everywhere anyway. But I certainly think that the money situation is an interesting one because I think we have to manage that quite carefully.
Yeah.
You know.
I think you're right.
Yeah. And but you know, for me, there's nothing better than the grassroots. They tell the truth. They don't compromise. They're uncompromising. And that's what the founders of our movement said. And that's what Tom Reagan said. They all said, our position is uncompromising. We want animal liberation. We want animal rights. And we want the end of animal use. Gone. Right?
Yes.
That's animal rights. When I used to advocate for the development, because I've done loads of blog entries about we've got a funding problem in the movement. And they go, yeah, but if you give money to these amateurs, I mean, there was one professional recently called a ragtag of amateurs or something he called the grassroots. You know, a lot of money will be wasted, totally ignoring that a hell of a lot of money is wasted in the current system. I've always said to people, you get all the national groups, you line up all their staff, and they've got their position and their salary, people would be really shocked by the amount of duplication that goes on. You know, it used to be even worse before the age of the internet. They all had their own physical offices. They all paid for printing. They all had their own photocopiers. They all had their own sales goods. They all had their own literature. All the literature was basically interchangeable, except for the logo on it, right? So can you imagine if they all got together and produced a range of goods that they could all use, how much cheaper it would be? They won't do that, though, because of business reasons.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a business, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's the problem. You know, Francione always complained that we don't really have a movement, we have a collection of businesses.
I was going to say, do you think some people are in it for the wrong reasons then, totally?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that. I just think that they think, well, I mean, there are some kind of, we've had quite a lot of right-wing people come into the movement lately, which has caused disruption, as you can imagine, because we really have been a left-leaning movement.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some people who describe the movement as left-wing. I've always preferred to say left-leaning, right? And even the people who described it as left-wing were saying, so you're talking about right the way from the anarchists through to the left-leaning liberals. So it's a fairly broad church, but left-leaning, you know. So I've always gone with that. And so obviously if you get right-wing people coming in, then that's going to cause disruption, you know. I mean, you ended up with Facebook groups like Vegans for Trump. There's a Facebook group, it might still be going, called that, right? And there's no reason why Donald Trump can't be vegan. Well, it could be plant-based, but Donald Trump cannot be vegan. You know, he's too violent.
Yeah.
As an individual, he's too bloody horrible to be a vegan. You know, and so again, that's where I think veganism and plant-based, that division is useful. Yeah, anybody can be plant-based, but you have to adhere to the philosophy of veganism to be vegan.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's obvious, really.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But so, I wouldn't necessarily like to say in for the wrong reasons. I think that some people think conventionally and think, well, okay, well, we need a structure, we need an organisation, we need a CEO. You know, we need to start bringing in the money and stuff like this. I mean, I don't know that much about the kind of new crop of groups, you know, Animal Rising or, you know, kind of Animal Justice Project, you know, that kind of stuff. But I mean, again, are they all duplication? Because I mean, I think they've all got staff now, you know. So once you then start, it's a bit of a you start a snowball rolling, and it gets bigger and bigger. You need more staff, you need this, and then you end up with groups like, for example, 2 groups that I know of: Animal Equality and Mercy for Animals. Right. I think I said, we had a phone call a couple of weeks ago, said that I think the worst group name ever has been Mercy for Animals. I hate that group name.
Yeah.
We're not begging for mercy. We're demanding rights. Oh, please, don't be cruel. No. It's kind of, you don't have the right to do that to them. That's animal rights, not kind of, oh, please, be nice.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a slogan in the movement now: be kind to every kind. It's not about kindness. It's about justice, which actually is a quote from Tom Reagan. He says, when rights are violated, justice, not kindness, is at issue. And it's true.
I don't. Maybe a lot of people don't, because I've used that word. We've used it often at the end of the podcast. Be kind. If you can do one thing today, go out and be kind. I suppose you just don't think about it. It's the language. It really is. It's made me think about it a lot more since I've talked to you about the language use.
I just think because language is so crucial
It's
for
powerful.
a social movement, then the least we can do is think about it. And I said on the David Nybert thing that if there are animal advocates who are blasé about language, that I don't understand why they would do that, because it is so crucial. It's the thing that we transmit our values to the world with. It's as important as that. What do you stand for? You tell people. So, get it right. If you sit there and you sound like the RSPCA, you're not going to give a vegan message. If you say it's all about animal cruelty, and unfortunately, at the moment, cruelty is the dominant word in the movement. Now, as I said before, I'm critical of that. Now, the caveat to that is that no words are banned, right? And so it's not as though you can never say it.
No.
Right. It's just that shouldn't be our main word.
No.
Because it's the RSPCA's main word, right? So, as I said, I would be in favour of actually kind of not using it for a good long time to kind of clear it from our claims making and our banners and the memes. You have a look at the memes. Oh, this person's cruel. This is about cruelty. Kind of what Reagan called the fundamental wrong has almost been lost. The fundamental wrong is the fact that we, as a species, commit rights violations against our fellow animals and each other. These are the fundamental wrong, not the level of cruelty. The level of cruelty kind of doesn't matter.
No.
But what Reagan does say is that the level of cruelty makes things worse, but it's not the fundamental wrong.
No.
So we must always keep that in mind. What's the fundamental wrong? And it's also cruel. Right. But what we do is we don't talk about this, we talk about the cruelty part. We kind of distort our own message. And it's a bit weird to me, to be honest. It's weird. I mean, people say, oh, well, you're too academic. But I don't think my position is particularly academic. I think it's just common sense.
Well, you certainly made me think about it a lot more, about the language.
Well, my job is done then.
You've done it with me. You've done it with you, I expect. Yeah.
Now, I prefer for those people who are not really vegan is not stop calling themselves vegan. In the same way, this is a mirror image. I've always said to people who don't agree with the philosophy of animal rights, please don't call yourself an animal rights person then. So they don't have a circuit of vegetarian organised conferences in order to present their essentially vegetarian position. I mean, we do to our fellow animals what the Nazis did to Jews. This is why I think that in our movement, if we had more sociology and less psychology, it would be really much better. I mean, people used to accuse groups of going in and beating up and killing our fellow animals in the farms in order to film it, dress up as farmers and stuff. Now, now you could do that with AI, right?
Well, that was an interesting interview, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Do you
he had
think?
quite a lot to say there, didn't he? Which
Yeah.
is really good.
Yeah, and I mean, can you see, like, it's so much to say that why it's in 2 parts.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Yeah, so that was the first part, and I really didn't know. I mean, I don't think you've read the book Animal Liberation by Peter Singer, have you?
No.
No, I've got to be honest with you, I haven't read it all. I've read bits of it. But I always thought it was a vegan book. And I always thought Peter Singer was a vegan. So that was quite an education for me there. I honestly thought he was.
Yeah, because it's quite interesting. A lot of the things that he's got to say is like how he spoke about like the RSPCA. They don't claim to be a vegan, what do you call them, charity. They don't label themselves as that.
No, they're animal. Well, I always thought they were animal rescue.
Yeah.
More than anything, animal welfare, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. It's funny, isn't it? It's like he said. I mean, I suppose at times the language is important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I from what I gathered from the interview is he's is quite particular about getting your language right because people you can't as long as you're honest with I'm a flexitarian or if you know what I mean, don't label yourself as vegan. And a lot of the time people do assume that veganism is just diet, like your plant-based diet, but it is as a whole, isn't it? It's a lifestyle. And
It's a philosophy,
Yeah.
like he says. It's an attitude. It's a way of being, isn't it? Like it's the thing. What I'm trying to say is, it's about animal rights, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
not about the diet. It's about the rights of the animals.
yeah.
So
Yeah, like how we were saying, not wanting bigger cages is empty cages, isn't it? It's the fact of separating the welfare from the rights, isn't it?
Yeah. But I suppose in some ways it's kind of like, is it a step into like having not empty cages, the bigger cages, is it a step closer to having empty cages?
Yeah, like some people would argue, I suppose, that in some ways fighting for animal rights as a whole realistically is not going to end ASAP, is it? So as a whole, maybe you're fighting not a losing battle, but it's going to take time. And some people maybe say, like, fighting for welfare, you're breaking down barriers, and eventually you'll get there. I don't know.
The only thing is, though, is that you've got to be really careful that the message doesn't get lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, like he was saying, like the reducitarians, I called them part-time vegans, didn't I? Which there's no such thing as a part-time vegan, but because you're either vegan or you're not. You shouldn't really, I suppose, call yourself vegan.
Like veganish, wasn't it? It's
Yeah.
what it said.
See, I'm not comfortable with that word, veganish. I feel it's a bit.
You're either vegan or you're not.
Yeah.
Because if you're not vegan, you're vegetarian, you're pescatarian, as long as you're being honest with your labelling, isn't it? And that's where the whole language, like you were saying, comes into play.
Yeah. Yeah. But there you go. Yeah, so it was very interesting. I'm very grateful to Roger Yates for taking the time to speak to us.
Yeah, and it's quite nice to, hear about, his backstory and, how he always had that idea of fairness. And, and it's quite nice that he can, being a purist as well, isn't it? He's, it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting actually because it's 50-year anniversary of the ALF.
Yeah, and he was part of the Hunt Saboteurs, wasn't he?
Hunt Saboteurs. He did it all really. He did Sea Shepherds, Hunt Saboteurs, ALF. He's done loads of stuff. So yeah. So keep tuned for part 2 next week.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, interesting. So anyway, I suppose we better sign off.
See you next time.
Yeah. So we'll see you next time for part 2 of that interview.
Stay tuned because it is really good.
Yeah, it is very interesting. It's a little bit longer next time. And like I say, I could have talked to him all afternoon. Well, in fact, I did. It was very interesting. So, yeah, watch that next week. And we'll still say it. If you want to do something good today, go out there and be kind.
Make sure you put on some sun cream.
Oh, yeah, because it's so hot. So hot. 30 degrees. We need to do something about this global warming, everybody. Anyway, take care. See you next time. Bye.